CCP's recent National Day on October 1st didn't quite go as planned. A 12-car pileup on the highway with 11 vehicles engulfed in flames. A flagpole flying the red 5-star flag toppling and killing a bystander. Flags at half-mast in Nanchang. Tiananmen Square littered with garbage. Snowstorms and earthquakes rattling various regions. Bad omens? It certainly seems that way. In the 75 years since its founding, the CCP has faced numerous crises that many believed could bring the regime to its knees. Think the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, and the Tiananmen Square massacre. Each disaster pushed the CCP to adopt its reform and opening up policy, leveraging foreign capital to fuel China's economic rise. But today, things are different. With US-China relations deteriorating and the international community increasingly isolating China, the cracks in the CCP's rule are beginning to show. And these cracks could widen faster than anyone expects. The challenges the CCP faces today could be the beginning of its end. Before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. This video might attract some negative comments or even bot attacks, tactics often used to bury certain content. By hitting the like button, you can help fight back and make sure this video gets seen by more people. So, if you're finding value in what we're discussing, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps. Science and technology falling behind. On September 20th, Huawei made headlines by launching the world's first trifold phone, the Mate XT, with a jaw-dropping price tag of $2,800, just 12 hours after Apple's iPhone 16 announcement. You'd think this blockbuster phone would steal the spotlight and give Apple a run for its money. But nope, it turned out to be more of a punchline than a game changer. The verdict? All 3 screens broke. Buyers regretted their purchase after just one day. And many went as far as calling it industrial waste. Once again, Chinese products proved to be all flash and no substance. So, is Huawei's tech really as groundbreaking as they claim? The answer is a resounding no. In 2018, then-President Donald Trump kicked off a trade war with China, citing unfair trade and intellectual property theft. When President Joe Biden took office, the pressure on China only escalated. By 2019 and 2020, tech giants like Huawei and Semic were blacklisted, with Washington ramping up control and export restrictions on Chinese companies. In 2022, Biden's administration took it further, expanding restrictions to include advanced tech like 14-nanometer chips, AI computing chips, and electronic design automation (EDA) tools. The US also rallied allies, such as Japan and Europe, to help block China's access to critical chip-making technology. A report from Peking University revealed that these moves have significantly hindered China's progress in tech and industrial development, particularly in chip manufacturing, AI, and IT. The US and its allies have effectively agreed to decouple from China in key technologies, leaving Chinese companies isolated in lower-value sectors. The report also highlighted China's brain drain. Only 34% of its top AI experts remain in the country, with 56% migrating to the US. Additionally, 88% of Chinese students studying in the US stay there, while just 10% return to China. As a result, China is facing severe bottlenecks in its tech ambitions, especially in high-value industries. Do you agree with me? Feel free to leave your comment below. The power struggle in Zhongnanhai, Xi fight to be on top? When Xi Jinping took the reins in 2012, he wasted no time launching an anti-corruption campaign that looked like a cleanup mission, but also served as a tool to silence dissent and eliminate rivals. Over the years, Xi has gained unprecedented power, far beyond what his predecessors held, but not without making a host of enemies within the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. The past year has been especially turbulent. High-profile figures like Defense Minister Li Shangfu and Foreign Minister Qin Gang have been purged, the powerful rocket force has been shaken up, and former Premier Li Keqiang's sudden death added to the mystery. These events have sparked widespread speculation. Is this just Xi eliminating competition to tighten his grip on power? On the surface, it seems like he's solidifying control, but in reality, he's losing loyalty and trust within the party. The numbers paint a staggering picture. Since Xi's rise in 2012, CCP disciplinary inspectors have opened a mind-blowing 46.48 million cases, including 553 against central-level officials, over 25,000 targeting provincial leaders, and more than 182,000 at the county level. A staggering 207,000 leaders holding key financial roles have been investigated for serious violations. And in just the first half of this year, over 330,000 officials have been disciplined. The message is clear. Xi's anti-corruption campaign has cast a wide net, but many wonder if it's truly about rooting out corruption or about keeping Xi's rivals at bay. Some experts even say that no matter how many heads roll, you can never fully stamp out corruption in the CCP. What do you think? Share your thoughts to discuss further with us. Irresponsible officials are becoming the norm. After 3 years of the CCP's rigid, zero-COVID policy, many officials found themselves paralyzed by constantly shifting directives and internal accountability pressures. This led to a widespread mindset of inaction, where taking any action was seen as risky, potentially making them targets for punishment. The prevailing attitude became, the more you do, the more mistakes you make; the less you do, the fewer mistakes. Consequently, many opted to do nothing. For the CCP's top leadership, this hands-off approach among local officials severely hampers governance, rendering central policies ineffective. Worse, it erodes public trust, fueling a growing sense of frustration and dissatisfaction among the population. Anyone can be an enemy. Since the 2023 two sessions, the Chinese military has been rocked by ongoing purges, with no sign of slowing down. When Xi Jinping took power in 2012, he launched a crackdown on the Jiang faction, taking down top military leaders like Xu Kaiho and Guo Boxiong and arresting nearly 200 generals. But now the tide has turned. Xi's latest target? His own inner circle. Back in 2016, Xi overhauled the military, slashing 7 massive military regions down to 5 theater commands: East, South, West, North, and Central, cutting the army's 18 group armies to 13. And creating new forces like the Strategic Support Force and the Independent Rocket Force. He also placed the armed police under direct control of the Central Military Commission, CMC. Xi personally oversaw the top brass, solidifying his grip on power, something he proudly proclaimed at the CCP's 20th National Congress. Yet in 2023, during his third term, Xi launched another brutal purge within the military, this time citing corruption in the rocket force. The numbers tell the story. 17 senior officers or military veterans have been investigated so far, including 5 generals Xi himself promoted. This purge has sent shockwaves through key military units, from the Ministry of Defense and the CMC's Joint Staff Department to the Navy, Air Force, and Strategic Support Force. Even China's state-owned defense companies, like China Aerospace Science and Technology and China North Industries, haven't been spared. As if that wasn't enough, just before the 97th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army in July, commanders in 3 of the 5 theater commands were suddenly replaced. Analysts can't help but draw comparisons to 1973, when Mao Zedong made a similar dramatic move, replacing 8 major military commanders. The reasons behind these latest shakeups? Maybe a crisis of loyalty, maybe preparation for something bigger on the horizon. Either way, the internal power struggle is far from over. Rising extremist nationalism. For years, the CCP has fueled anti-Japanese and anti-American sentiments through education, leading to a troubling surge in violent attacks on American and Japanese citizens. On September 18th, during the 93rd anniversary of the September 18 incident, when Japan invaded northeast China in 1931, a 10-year-old boy attending a Japanese school in Shenzhen was tragically stabbed and killed by a Chinese man on his way to school. This was the second attack on a Japanese citizen in China in just 3 months, sparking international concern. Earlier, on June 24th, a Japanese mother in Suzhou, Jiangsu province, was attacked by a Chinese man while picking up her child from school. Chinese authorities have yet to provide Japan with an explanation for the suspect's motive in either case. These incidents have caused outrage in Japan, prompting companies like Panasonic and Mitsubishi to evacuate their employees and families from China. Panasonic has offered financial support, including airfare, to help staff return home, and many Mitsubishi employees have also filed for repatriation. Japanese political leaders have criticized China's response, calling for stronger action. On September 19th, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida condemned the killing, stating, "This is an incredibly heinous crime, and we will respond firmly. I demand a full explanation from Chinese authorities." Shigeru Ishiba, then a candidate for prime minister, echoed this sentiment. The Japanese government must not only express concern, but also demand concrete actions from China and ensure clear measures are in place to prevent future incidents. China's real estate bubble bursts, an $18 trillion crisis. China's once booming real estate sector is now in the midst of a catastrophic collapse, with major property giants like Evergrande, Country Garden, and Powerlong Real Estate drowning in debt. What was once a cornerstone of the Chinese economy has turned into a ticking time bomb. A September report from Barclays economists revealed the shocking extent of the damage. The real estate downturn has wiped out an estimated $18 trillion in household wealth, with the average Chinese family losing around $60,000. To put that in perspective, this loss is nearly 5 times the size of China's entire GDP. Logan Wright, director of China Market Research, didn't mince words. The Chinese government seems powerless to save the real estate market. Their policies have been vague and ineffective, leaving the market in freefall. To make matters worse, China's housing glut is so extreme that even its 1.4 billion citizens couldn't fill the vacant homes, let alone as birth rates continue to plummet. The bubble has burst, and the fallout is just beginning. China's financial crisis on the horizon. A report from the Japan Center for Economic Research, as reported by Nikkei in Chinese on December 18, 2023, warns of dire economic scenarios for China. The forecast, covering 18 countries and territories in the Asia-Pacific region through 2035, highlights the risk of a real estate market collapse, plummeting property prices, and an ensuing financial crisis. China's real estate downturn has dragged on for more than 2 years. In response, CCP plans to ramp up financial support for property developers. However, the report cautions that this move could place an unsustainable burden on China's financial system, potentially triggering a full-blown financial crisis as early as 2027. The report also predicts that once the CCP prioritizes debt repayment, investments in infrastructure and other key sectors will sharply decline. Capital outflows are expected to accelerate, and the yuan could depreciate dramatically, potentially hitting 9 RMB to 1 USD compared to the current 3.5 RMB. In this worst-case scenario, China's real GDP growth could drop to 0 by 2027. China's debt crisis, a ticking time bomb. For years, local governments in China have relied heavily on land sales for revenue. But with the financial meltdown of property developers and a slumping housing market, many are now facing a financial crisis that's turning into a ticking time bomb for the entire Chinese economy. Local government debt, much of it hidden, ranges between $7 trillion and $11 trillion, nearly double the central government's debt. Worse, about $800 billion of that is teetering on the edge of default, threatening to collapse local financial systems. If this happens, it could wreak havoc on China's financial sector and deliver a heavy blow to economic growth. The Wall Street Journal reports that over the years, Chinese cities have accumulated trillions in debt through ambitious development projects. Today, abandoned construction sites, empty highways, and deserted tourist spots are stark reminders of China's debt-fueled growth, and a warning of the instability ahead. Economists are sounding the alarm. With $800 billion at high risk of default, local governments may not be able to meet their financial obligations. While the central government might step in, offering a lifeline could only encourage more reckless lending or leave financial institutions insolvent. The result? A potential financial crisis that could deal a devastating blow to Chinese banks and further drag down the country's already slowing economy. Diplomatic isolation. Following the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, the US announced it had compelling evidence that China was backing Russia, putting the world on alert. In 2023, China doubled down with its Central Foreign Affairs Work Conference, where the CCP reignited its confrontational rhetoric, vowing to dare to fight, wield the sword, and prepare for war. This revival of aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy has only deepened international unease. As China's hardline approach alienates more countries, a growing number of nations are pivoting away from Beijing. Instead, they're choosing to strengthen economic, trade, and tech partnerships with Taiwan, marking a clear shift as global powers increasingly keep their distance from the CCP's heavy-handed tactics. The public no longer fears the CCP. In recent years, public dissent in China has surged, with citizens increasingly taking to the streets in defiance. The White Paper movement, which pushed back against the oppressive zero-COVID policies, and the white-haired movement, protesting drastic cuts to health insurance funds, are just two examples of this rising resistance. Even more symbolic are the protests on bridges like Beijing's Xitong Bridge and a bridge in Xinhua County, Hunan, where banners boldly declared, "We want equality, not privilege, freedom, not control, dignity, not lies, reform, not another cultural revolution." As one commentator put it, the White Paper movement seems to have opened Pandora's box. The trust between the government and the people has reached an all-time low. While we haven't reached the tipping point yet, the gap is closing fast. The simmering discontent is clear. China's people are no longer staying silent. If you want to stay informed on the latest developments, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Join the conversation by dropping your thoughts in the comments below. How long do you think the CCP can hold on? Let's talk about it.